Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Doing another video. A little different this time for those that are here for how to get an interview and how to do well in an interview. Normally my channel is dealing with families and general aviation. I own a small Mooney and I travel a lot with my family. That's what most of my content here is. However, we're going to transition from that and talk about kind of the professional side of aviation, which I am in now. So as the title said, talk about how to get an interview and how to do well and that like that. This disclaimer is this is just my experience, what I've done through this process. I've had to go through the interview process, from applying to hiring twice now. Once when I got out of the Army, and then I got laid off in June and had to redo it all over again. So the market was lukewarm back then. The market's very cold right now. So I'll talk about how I was successful in both markets and then what I done, the changes I made between the two and how I was successful, and kind of the overall recipe that I've used that has been very successful for me. All right, so moving forward, we'll get into it. What I see a lot on aviation forums is I got 2 billion hours, I got XYZ, I put in 50 apps, and I haven't heard anything. But we have a surplus of pilots and we're all trying to look for jobs. So you need to stand out. From every aspect along the way, you need to stand out in good ways. All small details. Every one of us are pilots. Every one of us has that resume of I got hours, I got ratings, I got certificates, and we're all the greatest pilots in the world. I truly am the greatest pilot in the world, just for your record. First step, get a good resume. I'll put mine up here and kind of show it to you, go from there. I got this vetted through multiple sources. I didn't just write this on my own. I took it, I used some templates, I sent it to a friend for a company that I would have worked for, that he was working for the company that I wanted to work for. He looked at it, he made some edits. I sent it to someone else, I sent it to someone else, I sent it to someone else. And we did a bunch of edits and going through there. One of the biggest edits that has helped me the most is the volunteer work at the bottom. So that was huge for a lot of companies. It goes for there. But I'll talk about overall the resume. White space is huge. You don't want, it's the industry standard, of course, is 1 page, right? So you got your 1 page resume. You want the white space. You don't want it filled up completely and everything going through there. The biggest thing that I've seen on aviation resumes is the hours. You need to highlight that. You need to make that there. So you can see on mine, I got a whole block, hours and ratings. So that's really easy to see that they can hit for whatever the company A or company B needs. All right, they need X amount of instrument. Yep, he has it, going for there. And that's a quick scan to see if they, put you in the dump pile or continue pile. The rest of the stuff is important too. Your job experience, I could probably write 20 pages alone on my Army experience, but you just kind of want to hit the highlights of your job, that portrays to what you're doing the next job. So on the Army side, I put the flying stuff. I did 80,000 other things, and down the way. The company that I was an SIC for, I just put some customer service and a few other things there. Obviously, we did way more. Another thing with the resume is your opening line up here on top. I change it for everyone I send a resume into. So I'm sending it into American, Delta, United, whoever. I don't have a generic resume. I've done some research on the company. Maybe they got a little catchphrase, little slogan, and I'll put it in there and I'll put their name on it. That way, it knows that they looked at, okay, I put some time in investing in their company. It's a little thing. All these things are little things that help set me aside from the next guy. I can't talk about cover letters. This last time I was applying back in January when I was applying back then, about October of last year, October 23 when I was applying, cover letters really weren't a thing. This time around when I'm applying, a lot of them were asking if I have a cover letter. I don't have a cover letter. I don't know anything about cover letters. If you guys know about cover letters, please put in the comments if they've worked for you. If they haven't worked for you, I literally know nothing about them. All right, moving on. So you have your resume and you've applied at all of the companies. You're not getting anything back. Well, you're doing the right steps so far, but the companies now want to see more out of you. What does that mean? You have to network and you have to go to recruiting events. The legacy recruiters and the major airline recruiters are publicly saying nowadays that they won't even entertain you unless they've seen you at 2 recruiting events, at least 2. They need to see your face twice. So what are these recruiting events? So they have recruiting events all year round. Women in Aviation, I think it's Asian Pilots Association, APA. Don't quote me, please, sorry. There's LGBTQ one. There's Oshkosh, so AirVenture. I went to it last year. I brought resumes. Coming up, there's OBAP, there's LPA, and then there's RTAG. Shout out for this shirt. RTAG's kind of a military veteran one. However, it is one of the biggest hiring events of the year. And I'll talk more specifically about that in a little bit. So you go up there, you move forward, and you apply like that. And then you make the decision to go to recruiting event, whichever one you decide is going to be best for you. Do some research. So obviously you've looked at what airlines are going to be there. Do some research on the airlines. Find out where their bases are. Find out what airlines, what airplanes they fly. Find out some things so you can have a conversation with these people. Don't just show up with a resume and be like, hire me, and kind of like a robot. You got to be a person. And with that, in a suit. Shaved, don't look like me like I look right now. So clean shaven. I understand that like there's the argument from the military guys like, oh, I want my beard, I just got out of the military. Shave it. It does help stand out. I recently went to an interview where I got a job offer and another buddy of mine did not. He did not shave his beard. He since shaved it and has gotten a job offer. So going forward, you want to look professional. They have come out publicly and said that I wear a collared shirt and a tie every day for at work. You should wear one as well. Going around in, I've seen this at the recruiting events, pants and cowboy boots doesn't cut it anymore. And then understand that when you go to these recruiting events, I'll throw some pictures from the RTAG in 22 and 23. At RTAG, it's you and 5,000 of your best friends. That's what you're competing against. So again, you need to stand out. One of the ways that I stood out for myself is I put my resume on cardstock. Not like super thick cardstock, just slightly thicker than normal paper, just a hair thicker, and a slightly off-white color. So as they flip through all the resumes and stuff like that, yours stands out. When they pick up your resume and like that, I had multiple people say this to me, oh, I like your resume, oh, it feels nice. It's another way for you to stand out. And then as you go to these recruiting events that have multiple companies, right? So there's going to be multiple aviation companies, American, Delta, they're all going to be there, right? For everyone that you specifically want to talk to and that you're seeking a job, have a custom resume for them. I had my folder that I took with me and I had it tapped out. And then I had a plan of where I was going to go around the floor and be like, we're going to start here, ranked in priority, right? So I had my number 1 and I went through there and go like that. Be prepared to ask questions, be prepared to talk to them, open and honest about everything and anything. If you have check ride failures, go for there. Networking is huge in this business. Networking is huge. I can't stress that enough about how important networking is. So I get asked, how do you do networking? By going to these events. If you get an interview, go to the interview, like exchange phone numbers with the guys you're talking with, go through there, follow up on their journey. As you're at these recruiting events, and you're like I remember that RTAG, 23, the line for Frontier was literally wrapped around the building. So you're in that line for a while, and then zigzagging, and you're all pilots, you're talking pilot stories. Talk to them, get their phone numbers, network, build your network, okay? So you've applied at them, you got your resume, you got your nice suit, you got your information as you go through there, and then you talk and try to get your interviews. So a little bit now about my specific experience. I've been to RTAG, the recruiting events I personally went to was RTAG 2022. I went to a pilot social for my number 1 choice, the job that I'm starting here in a little bit, in spring of 23. I took my family to Oshkosh, a video I should probably edit. I brought resumes to Oshkosh because I knew the company that I wanted to target was going to be there. So I brought specific resumes, I brought a shirt, I did a few things. I went there. So I made a separate trip for that. They remember that during my interview. And then I went to RTAG 2023. So I'll talk about this last time around, RTAG 23. I'm an Army idiot. And so in 2022, I'm going around with my folder and I had no clue what to ask, no clue what to say, what like that. Then the 2-day event, my network was significantly larger. I knew what I wanted. I knew how to track. I got set up with pathway programs. I got set up with everything else and helped set my trajectory on to a year later. I was getting CJOs. And in 2023, when I went to RTAG, I got 2 on-the-site interviews, 1 interview that was a week later. How I got the on-the-site interviews. So I was in the suit, I was going through there, and I went there and talked to them. Not only that, I networked my way in. The 2 on the site, I knew people in both companies. 1 from the Army side, 1 from the civilian side. So I went there, talked to them, and got the on the site, and they said, hey, we'll do your interview tomorrow. And so RTAG's a 2-day event. So day 1, I got the first interview set up for the next day. I didn't know about aviation interviews at aviationinterviews.com at the time. If you don't know about aviationinterviews.com, go check it out. It has the majority of the airlines out there, Part 135, Part 91, Cargo, 121, all of them. And it has broken down in HR questions, technical questions, and CME valve sides of the questions they're all going to ask you. That are, I guess it's not all of them, but the most popular ones. And so I went back to my hotel room that night and I studied all those questions and everything else. And the next morning when I showed up, I was able to ace that interview. Caution on aviationinterviews.com. So like I just said, I use it successfully. I continue to use it throughout my interviewing process. These airlines know about aviationinterviews.com and they know about the gouge, as the interviewer told me to go look at it the day before. And I got a CJO on the spot from that job, which was a regional airline. The third job offer I got was a 135 company, and I was chasing after them pretty good. I had a good friend that was flying for them and loved the company. However, as a one-man show, he was sharing a booth with another airline, and he was super busy doing this, and he wasn't entertaining anyone like interviews, but I wasn't taking no for an answer. So professionally, I came back, and then eventually I name dropped my friend that was working there. So my network, I used my network in the interview. He's like, okay, go apply right here. Go to this website, apply. We ended up setting up the interview the next week after they like that, and I got the job offer. During this round of hiring, I also had a 4th interview. After I got back home from the convention, I had my SkyWest interview. That will be about the only airline I'll name during all this because it's kind of specific. I didn't know anybody that flew for SkyWest, so how did I get that interview? Their pilot pathway program. So RTAG 2022, I talked to them, I interviewed with them, and I got signed up for the pilot pathway program. I attended classes, I did that. It was a wealth of knowledge and going through there, and that's how I got their interview. Right now, the airlines that are hiring, your 121 guys, they're only hiring out of their pathway programs, their pathway cadet programs, whatever. They're only hiring out of there right now. They're not really taking anyone off the street. The interview portion, all right, so you got there, you did the networking, you went to the multiple recruiting events. The recruiter knows your face, like my number 1 company, the recruiter knows who I am. When I applied the second time around, they knew exactly who I was and helped the process go for there and really helped me out. So they know who you are, they go through there, and you're set up for the interview as I shake my phone. Most aviation interviews are a multi-stage process. Your interviews that may be done on site at the recruiting events are usually a one-shot, one deal. Great if you can get one there. Most of the times you don't. So we'll fast forward into my career. I got laid off in June. It is August 2nd right now. And I had to start this whole process over again. So I wasn't at a recruiting event, so I had to go through all like that. Every airline that I interviewed with was a multi-stage process. I will say I applied at everyone. I heard back from not a single 121 operator. However, they were all a multi-staged interview. Started out with either a phone or a virtual interview. And then so how do you prepare for that? Okay, so I'll talk about the phone side and then I'll tie it into the virtual side. Do your research. Get on aviationinterviews.com. Read through what they're saying. Get on the company's website. Find their values. They all, like every company has a core saying, their values, these words. They truly love the color blue. There was a company that I interviewed that was all about a brand and the way they did their imaging, and it was heavy around blue. Things like that, right? Write down notes. Understand, before every interview, I did about 2 hours of prep, researching the company. So like I said, I did heavy on the 135 side. They, a lot of times, will ask about aircraft, to give an example. What aircraft would you like to fly? So what do we all say? I don't care. I'll fly anything. I just want to be a part of your company. Good answer. A better answer would be if you've done like a 10-second Google search and found out what airplanes they're flying. Like one company else that I interviewed with had the Global 7500 as one of their airplanes. So like, all right, what airplane would you like to fly? I was like, the 7500. And she just kind of looked at me. I was like joking. I was like, I'm joking. I understand. I mean, yes, eventually I would like to get into the 7500. However, I understand that I'll be starting out in these airplanes, and then you've done your research and then go through that. So that shows that to the recruiter or the HR or the person you interview that you've done your research. You've done their research, you're invested in the company, you understand things about their airplanes, and go for there. So that's just those little things. Be confident, be relaxed, and be humble. They don't need to. Right now, I saw one that said for every position, they have a minimum of 12 applicants. So if you come in with any type of cockiness, anything like that, that's not those little things to set you aside. Let's go through there. Understanding their values on a phone interview, understanding their airplanes on an interview will help set aside. So I'll talk now more about the virtual side of interviews because that's like that. Wear a suit. As we sit here like that, I had my suit and tie on for the virtual interviews. I set this. My background, this right here, was all set up. The helmet was down here, but I'll insert a picture of my kid. He was grabbing my helmet and pulling it off. But all of this right here, so that's my wife's degree. It's hard to see, but there's some of my kids' stuff up there. There's a joke about Star Wars up there. All this stuff was set up on purpose. This was my interview spot. I controlled the background. All this stuff can be a conversation starter, and a lot of it was during these interviews. So it kind of shows who you are as a little bit. It's not some false background. They're like, what are you trying to hide? Number two is, as you hear right now, I don't have any distractions. So the kids aren't in the house, the dogs were put away, nothing like that. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. I had zero distractions. There were zero interruptions. I controlled the environment. I also set up my camera beforehand. This camera angle right now, I had the phone set up on several boxes and up on a messy table right now because of just finishing stuff from my move from the Army. I set all this up and I prepped it all to make sure the camera angle was good, my background was good, I controlled this side. I always look good as I sat down and go through there. I had my notepad ready. As they go through, they're taking notes as your interview. Why aren't you taking notes on yours? Especially if you have a question that you want to ask them. Write that down. They love questions. I'll talk about that in a minute. Write that down. A lot of the stuff that I talked about, their core values, or they ask specific questions about X or Y. Maybe there's a technical question you're struggling to remember. Write that down. I had that right off camera. I won't lie. I won't even lie. I had that right off camera. They couldn't see it. So when I got asked a question that I possibly couldn't remember, like the full thing, I had a note sheet that I can reference. Call it cheating. I just call it using my resources. The next thing is as I talk about this, you're going to be asked, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time, tell me about a time, tell me about a time. There's a million different tell me about a times. I will say that every interview I got asked or I got interviewed on, there was tell me about a time you dealt with conflict in the cockpit. Every single interview from my last hiring to this hiring round, every single one, I got asked that question. So I have a story that I've rehearsed over and over and over again. So when they ask me that, I don't just immediately spit it out though. Just like when you take a check ride, right? Listen to the question, take a minute to pause, think about it, then answer it. So that way also it goes through there. What I talked about earlier about aviation interviews, and they know it, if you're reciting verbatim word like questions or answers from some of these questions that they're asking, they're gonna know. They will know. So that's why write some of those notes down and practice saying those answers in your own words. And that'll help you out. That'll help you out, stand out, and go for there. And the second part of the interview, and this part is as important as the first part of the interview. What do they always do at the interview? Okay, what questions do you have for us? Do not, I stress, do not say, oh no, I think you've answered everything. Don't do that. Do not do that. One of the interviews I had, it was an in-person interview. They leaned forward and asked that, like their whole body language shifted, almost like what I was asking them was more important than what they asked me. So everyone's like, I don't know what to ask. I don't know, like I'll find out in day talk, I'll find out in like this. Ask those questions. What I like to do is, what personal questions did they ask me? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, Mr. Interviewer, where's this company going in the 5 years? What's the business plan moving forward? Aviation's kind of crazy. What are we seeing? You know, like, what got you in aviation? What got you in aviation? All right. What's your favorite part of working for this company? If you could change one thing in this company, what would it be? And I asked that to everyone. Pilots interviewing me, HR interviewing me. They're like, oh, I'm not a pilot. No, perfect. I would like to know from your side of the house so I get an understanding of the entire company. Now it shows that you're truly invested and you're truly like there and you have like that. And one of my interviews went 30 minutes long because of those questions, and it was a good thing. Things like, so let's say you can go into a company that has multiple aircraft and you don't know what aircraft they're going to assign you in. What aircraft would you take and why? Now, these are questions that you ask them and go through there and their research and you got your notes and be like, of course I would prefer this aircraft, but what aircraft would you do and why? So it shows that you've done your research and you've done your stuff and your knowledge on the company. As we move forward to the in-person interview. So some companies will terminate the interview process right there and they'll let you know. I had 2 or 3 companies that just only went to a Zoom call. And then they asked, I had an HR or technical side and so on and so forth, and things about decision making. Your bigger companies are going to do in-person interview. And most likely they're going to fly you there. You are being watched the second you step off that plane. The second you get off the plane, you're being watched. They want to see who you are. They want to see how you're treating your staff. They want to see everything. So when I traveled to these interviews, I traveled in a polo. Now I wasn't in a full suit and tie. I was in jeans, my chucks, my polo. Got through there. I was nice to everyone. I tipped the shuttle drivers. I was nice to the hotel clerks. I do know one company for sure, actually, before you go to the in-person interviews, calls the hotel and gets notes on everybody. Understand that these people, these hotel staff, see a new group of interviewees every week. So when I checked in, ask them for their advice. Whether you choose to take it or not, ask them. They're like, because we had a bunch going to one interview, and we're like, oh, she's like, I asked her, I was like, what time would you be down here? She's like, oh, well, breakfast is at this time. If you want, this, get here this a little early and go for there. Those were tips that actually helped me out for success in the morning. The other people that you're interviewing with, most likely you're going to be in a group, be nice to them. Talk to them. Find their stories. Build your network. On one of my interviews, I built my network huge, and we talk every day. Go for there. Other things that stand out. Have all your documents in order. If there's a company that has specific branding, little subtle things, like that company that talked about blue. I had a blue tie and a blue undershirt. My suit looked good. Everything was atrocious and all that. But it's messaging that I understand their company. Things like logbooks. So I had interviews with logbook reviews. So how do you set yourself out for logbook reviews? We all use digital logbooks. So what do? Oh crap, print it out at the hotel, print out all, your 80,000 pages and just, here you go. These are the logbooks I handed in at my last interview. This is my civilian logbook. This is my military logbook. It's printed on nice paper. It's spiral bound. It's going through with all my pages, signatures, and go through there with a nice picture on front. Because this is clingy, so when you open it up, it lists the front page and automatically takes you right to the logbook, and you don't miss that first page of the logbook. Stuff on design. I also had it tabbed out. I've taken the tabs out since then, but I had it tabbed out for check rides and everything else. So they were able to pick it up, tab it, and be like, yep. And this is how they did my logbook review, because I had the tabs, I had it like this, they went like this, they checked the next page, they checked my totals, and they set off the side. Same thing on my Army logbook. Same thing. These are digital logbooks that I printed, had a print shop to it, wasn't that expensive, and it was the next thing to set me out. And then, so we'll wrap this up a little bit. I'll talk because we're getting a little long. Sim interviews. There's companies that do sim interviews. You can usually find the scenario on aviationinterviews.com. Chair fly the sim. I had 2 interviews that had that involved a panel and then a sim portion. I chair flew both of them. They were completely different sim setups. One was actually a Redbird, and one was a full motion jet sim. But the night before in the hotel, I was sitting there, closing my eyes, just going through the scenario, talking about this, because there's altitude, speed restrictions, briefings, ILSs, emergencies, everything else. And so I chair flew it. And then when I got in, on both the times when I went in the sims, on the 2 different companies, I went with somebody else. And they had their particulars. I need X or I need Y. I'm like, I'll just go in with whatever, because I came prepared. And then I was successful on both interviews. And that's it. You do this, and then just from like there, so you get a good resume, you build your network, you go to these recruiting events, you get your interviews, you're professional through the interview, you wear your suit, your tie, you do your research on these companies and put that into these interviews. You show up to the in-person interview prepared, you're nice, you're friendly, and you've cheered and flown if there's a sim, you will be successful. Right now, it may not be your dream airline. That's just, unfortunately, that's what it is right now. With 1,500 hours, you're not getting applied, but you can start building your jet time with other companies. And then when the hiring opens back up again, then go through there. If you have any questions, comments, anything, what has your process been? What has it been like for you in these, in this market? Please let me know. I'd love to hear how it's going like that. I'd love to build my network. Comment below if you'd like me to send you a message about particular companies that I interviewed with that I didn't name here. Absolutely, I will. Just shoot me a message or comment down, and I'll, we can find there on whatever your social media handle is. Until next time, hopefully I can get some of these family flying videos edited. Obviously, I've been a little busy, multiple jobs now. It's life. It's part of the 135 side. So again, if you guys got any questions about the 135 life, let me know. I can maybe do a video about that later. So I'm rambling now, so I gotta go get the kids. Until next time, fly safe, keep grinding. Trust me, there's light at the tunnel. See you.